In a small, quiet town surrounded by green fields and tall trees, there lived a young boy who was known for his big heart. This boy, no older than 10, had a sparkle in his eyes that could light up even the cloudiest of days. Life wasn't easy, for him or his family, but he never let that dampen his spirit. His mom worked day and night to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. She cleaned offices during the early mornings and served at a diner late into the evenings. Despite her exhaustion, she always made sure her son felt loved and cared for. The boy admired his mom more than anyone else in the world. He often watched her from the corner of the room as she sat stitching up old clothes or cooking meals with whatever little they had. Her hands were rough from years of hard work, but to him, they were magical, capable of turning scraps into something delicious and worn-out fabric into something new. He wanted to do something special for her, something that would make her smile brighter than ever before. One afternoon, while walking home from school, the boy passed by a tiny thrift store tucked between two larger buildings. It was the kind of place most people overlooked, a little dusty, a bit cluttered, but full of hidden treasures if you looked closely enough. As he peered through the window, something caught his eye. A delicate silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant hanging inside a glass case. The sunlight streaming through the window made it shimmer like stars. He stood there for a moment, imagining how beautiful it would look around his mom's neck. She deserved something nice, something that reminded her how much she meant to him. But then reality hit him. He didn't have enough money. Not yet, anyway. Still, the idea stuck with him. That evening, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he decided he would find a way to buy that necklace, no matter what it took. Over the next few weeks, the boy threw himself into every chore and odd job he could find. He mowed lawns for neighbors, helped carry groceries for elderly folks, and even climbed ladders to clean gutters despite being scared of heights. Every coin he earned went straight into an old cookie jar he kept hidden under his bed. Some days he came home empty-handed, because no one needed help, but he refused to give up. Each penny brought him closer to his goal. Finally, after what felt like forever, the jar was full. With trembling hands, he counted the coins one last time. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. The very next day, he rushed to the thrift store, clutching the money tightly in his fist. When he walked in, the bell above the door jingled softly, announcing his arrival. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with glasses perched on the tip of his nose, smiled warmly. "Back again, are we?" he asked, recognizing the boy from his previous visits. "I'm here to buy the necklace," the boy replied confidently, pointing to the display case. The shopkeeper chuckled and said, "That one's been waiting for someone special. I think it's found its owner." Carefully, he took out the necklace and wrapped it in soft tissue paper before handing it to the boy. As the boy handed over his hard-earned savings, he felt a mix of pride and excitement bubbling inside him. He couldn't wait to see the look on his mom's face when she opened the gift. On the way home, the boy stopped by the local stationery store to pick up some wrapping paper. He chose a shiny red roll with golden snowflakes printed all over it. It seemed festive and perfect for the occasion. Once home, he carefully wrapped the necklace, tying it with a ribbon he had saved from last year's birthday cake. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, he stared at the neatly wrapped present, imagining the moment he would hand it to his mom. It was going to be the best surprise ever, or so he thought. Little did he know, life had another surprise in store, one that would change everything in ways he could never have imagined. The boy placed the wrapped gift on the corner of the dining table, positioning it just right so his mom would notice it as soon as she walked in. He couldn't stop fidgeting. His feet tapped against the floor, and his fingers drummed nervously on the edge of the chair. The anticipation was killing him. For weeks he had dreamed of this moment, picturing her face lighting up with joy when she saw what he had worked so hard to buy for her. But now that the moment was close, he felt a strange mix of excitement and anxiety bubbling inside him. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, the boy kept glancing out the window. His mom was usually home by now, but tonight she seemed to be running late. He tried not to worry too much. She often stayed longer at work if someone needed extra help or if the diner got busy. But tonight, every passing minute felt like an hour. To distract himself, he busied his hands by tidying up the living room, straightening cushions and wiping down surfaces until everything looked neat and welcoming. Finally, headlights appeared outside, cutting through the growing darkness. The boy's heart skipped a beat as he heard the familiar creak of the car door closing and the soft crunch of footsteps on the gravel path leading to the front door. When the key turned in the lock, he practically leapt to his feet, his eyes glued to the doorway. As soon as she stepped inside, bundled up in her worn coat and scarf, he blurted out, "Mom, you're finally home." She paused mid-step, startled by his sudden energy, then smiled wearily. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and her hair stuck out in places where her hat had flattened it. Despite her tired appearance, there was a warmth in her expression that made the boy feel instantly comforted. "Hey, kiddo," she said, brushing snowflakes off her shoulders. "What's got you so excited?" Before she could take off her coat, the boy grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the dining table. "Wait here," he instructed, pointing dramatically at the small parcel sitting there. "Don't touch anything yet." His enthusiasm was contagious, and despite her exhaustion, she couldn't help but laugh softly. All right," she teased, raising her hands in mock surrender. "I won't peek." With exaggerated care, the boy picked up the gift and held it out to her, his grin stretching ear to ear. "This is for you," he announced proudly. "Merry Christmas, Mom." For a moment, she simply stared at the brightly wrapped package in her hands, her lips parting slightly in surprise. Then, slowly, she began to unwrap it, her fingers trembling as they tore through the shiny paper. When the silver necklace came into view, her breath caught audibly. She held it up to the light, watching as the pendant shimmered like tiny stars. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned to look at her son. Did you get this for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded eagerly, his chest puffing out with pride. "I saved up for weeks. I wanted to get you something really special because you work so hard, and I just wanted you to know how much I love you." Her eyes glistened as she pulled him into a tight hug, rocking him gently back and forth. "It's perfect," she murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. Absolutely perfect. In that moment, all the sacrifices she had made, the long hours, the missed holidays, the endless struggle, felt worth it. This simple act of love from her child reminded her why she kept pushing forward every single day. But just as she was about to say more, a knock echoed through the house, startling them both. The sound was sharp and unexpected, breaking the tender mood that had filled the room. The boy furrowed his brow, confused. "Were you expecting someone?" he asked. Looking up at her, she shook her head, equally puzzled. "No, I wasn't." Hesitantly, she stood up and walked toward the door, clutching the necklace tightly in one hand. When she opened it, she froze, her mouth falling open in shock. Standing on the other side was a woman neither of them recognized, dressed warmly, in a stylish coat and boots. Her presence radiated kindness, but there was also an air of importance about her that made the boy's mom instinctively step back. "Hello?" the woman said warmly, her smile genuine and inviting. "I'm sorry to interrupt your evening, but I've been visiting families around town who might need a little extra support during the holidays. May I come in?" The boy's mom hesitated, unsure of what to do. Strangers knocking on their door weren't exactly common, especially ones who looked as polished and put together as this woman. Sensing her hesitation, the visitor added quickly, "Please don't worry, I'm not here to sell anything or cause trouble. My name is Karoline Leavitt, and I promise I only want to help." Something about the way she spoke, her calm tone, the sincerity in her eyes, put the boy's mom at ease. Slowly, she nodded and stepped aside to let her in. "Of course," she said softly. "Come on in." As Karoline entered the cozy living room, the boy watched curiously from behind his mom's leg. He didn't understand why this stranger had shown up at their house, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. Little did any of them know, this chance encounter would change their lives forever. Karoline stepped inside, her presence filling the small living room with a quiet sort of energy. She glanced around, taking in the modest furniture, the worn rugs, and the faint scent of pine from a tiny Christmas tree standing in the corner. It wasn't much, but there was something undeniably warm about the space, like love had been woven into every thread of it. Turning back to the boy's mom, she smiled gently. "Thank you for letting me come in," she said, her voice soft, yet steady. "I hope I'm not intruding." The boy's mom shook her head quickly, still clutching the necklace in one hand. "Not at all," she replied, though her tone betrayed a hint of nervousness. Can I get you something? Tea? Coffee?" Karoline waved her off politely. "Oh no, please don't trouble yourself. I just wanted to sit down for a moment if that's okay." Without waiting for an answer, she took a seat on the edge of the couch, folding her hands neatly in her lap. Her calm demeanor seemed to ease some of the tension in the room, and after a moment the boy's mom sat down across from her, perching awkwardly on the armrest of an old chair. The boy lingered nearby, watching silently as Karoline reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. Flipping it open, she began asking questions, simple ones at first. "How are things going for you lately?" she asked, her gaze shifting between the mom and the boy. "Is there anything specific you've been hoping for this holiday season?" The boy's mom hesitated, unsure how to respond. She wasn't used to talking about her struggles, especially not with someone who looked like they belonged in a world far removed from hers. But something about Karoline's patient expression made her feel safe, like she could speak without fear of judgment. After a long pause, she let out a sigh. "Things have been tough," she admitted quietly. "I've been working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and sometimes it feels like no matter how hard I try, it's never enough." Karoline nodded slowly, her eyes kind but serious. "That must be exhausting," she said softly. "Do you ever get time to focus on yourself? Or maybe think about what you'd like to do differently in the future?" The question caught the mom off guard. For so long, she had put everyone else's needs ahead of her own, her son, her bills, her responsibilities. Thinking about herself felt almost selfish even now. She glanced down at the necklace in her hand, its silver surface catching the light. "I used to dream of going back to school," she confessed after a moment. "Maybe becoming a nurse or something where I could help people, but that's not really realistic anymore." Karoline tilted her head slightly, her interest piqued. "Why isn't it realistic?" she asked, her tone gentle but probing. "Well," the mom hesitated again, glancing toward the boy before continuing. "For starters, I don't have the money for tuition, and even if I did, who would take care of him while I studied? It's already hard enough juggling work and everything else." Karoline listened intently, nodding along as if she understood every word. Then, without warning, she leaned forward slightly, her expression turning thoughtful. "What if I told you there might be a way to make that dream possible?" she said, her voice low but filled with purpose. The mom blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" Reaching into her bag once more, Karoline pulled out an envelope and held it out. "This is for you," she said simply. "Inside, you'll find information about a scholarship program designed specifically for single parents looking to further their education. There's also financial support available to cover childcare costs while you study." For a moment, the mom just stared at the envelope, too stunned to move. Finally, she reached out and took it, her fingers trembling slightly. Opening it, she found a detailed pamphlet along with a check, a generous amount meant to ease the burden of immediate expenses. Tears welled up in her eyes as she flipped through the pages, overwhelmed by the possibilities unfolding before her. The boy, who had been watching quietly from the sidelines, finally spoke up. "Does this mean Mom can go to school?" he asked, his voice tinged with awe. Karoline turned to him, smiling warmly. "It means she has the opportunity to try," she replied. "But it's still up to her to decide what comes next." Mom looked at her son, then back at Karoline, her mind racing with thoughts and emotions. For years, she had resigned herself to the idea that dreams were luxuries she couldn't afford. But now, sitting here with this stranger who had walked into their lives unannounced, she felt something stirred deep within her, a flicker of hope that refused to be ignored. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. You don't need to thank me, Karoline said softly. Just promise me one thing, that you'll give yourself permission to dream again. You deserve it. As the evening wore on, Karoline stayed a little longer, answering questions and offering guidance. By the time she left, the house felt different. Somehow, not because anything physical had changed, but because the air carried a new sense of possibility. The boy watched his mom carefully, noticing the way she clutched the envelope to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. He didn't fully understand everything that had happened, but he knew one thing for sure. His mom was smiling in a way he hadn't seen in a very long time. After Karoline left, the house fell into a quiet stillness, but it wasn't the same kind of silence that usually settled over them at night. This time, the air felt charged with something new. Hope, maybe, or the promise of change. The boys' mom sat on the couch, staring at the envelope in her hands as if it might disappear if she looked away for too long. Her son hovered nearby, his wide eyes fixed on her face, trying to gauge what she was thinking. "Mom?" he finally ventured, breaking the silence. "Are you okay?" She blinked, startled out of her thoughts, and turned to look at him. For a moment, she seemed unsure how to respond. Then, slowly, a small smile spread across her lips. "I think I am," she said softly, her voice tinged with wonder. "It's just, this is so much to take in." The boy nodded, though he didn't fully understand. He had seen his mom stressed, tired, and worried countless times before. But tonight there was something different about her. It wasn't just the way she held herself, straighter, more confident, but the light in her eyes. She looked like someone who had been given permission to dream again after years of keeping those dreams locked away. "What are you going to do?" he asked, curiosity bubbling inside him. "Are you really going to go to school?" His mom hesitated, glancing down at the envelope once more. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "It's scary, isn't it? Starting something new when life already feels so full. But..." She paused, her fingers tracing the edge of the pamphlet inside the envelope. "But maybe scary doesn't have to mean bad. Maybe it means exciting." The boy tilted his head, considering her words. To him, scary usually meant things like climbing tall ladders or speaking in front of the class. Exciting, on the other hand, was racing his bike downhill or opening presents on Christmas morning. Could they really be the same thing? Before he could ask, his mom stood up abruptly, tucking the envelope safely onto the dining table. "Enough. Thinking for now," she said with a laugh that sounded lighter than usual. "It's late and we both need some rest. Let's talk more tomorrow, okay?" The boy agreed, though he knew sleep wouldn't come easily. As he climbed into bed, his mind raced with questions. Would his mom become a nurse? What would it be like if she went to school? And most importantly, how could one person, a stranger, like Karoline, walk into their lives and make such a big difference? The next morning, the house buzzed with a fresh energy. His mom woke up earlier than usual, humming softly as she made breakfast. When the boy joined her in the kitchen, she greeted him with a warm smile, looking more rested than she had in weeks. "Good morning," she said cheerfully, sliding a plate of pancakes toward him. "Eat up, we've got a busy day ahead." "A busy day?" he echoed, raising an eyebrow. Usually, weekends were their only chance to relax together. "What's happening?" "Well," she began, sitting down across from him. "First, I want to call the number Karoline gave us, see what exactly this scholarship program involves. And then..." She hesitated, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I thought maybe we could visit the mall. Pick out a few supplies if I decide to enroll." The boy's eyes lit up. A trip to the mall was always exciting, even if it was just to browse. But today it felt like more than that. It felt like part of something bigger, like they were stepping into a new chapter of their lives. After breakfast, his mom picked up the phone and dialed the number listed in the pamphlet. The boy listened intently as she spoke, her voice steady but tinged with nervous excitement. Whoever was on the other end clearly had answers, because by the end of the call, her shoulders relaxed, and she let out a relieved sigh. They're expecting me for an interview next week, she told him, hanging up the phone. If everything goes well, I can start classes in January. That's amazing, the boy exclaimed, jumping up from his chair. You're going to be a nurse, his mom laughed, shaking her head. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, kiddo. First, I need to make sure I can handle all of this. School won't be easy, especially with everything else we have going on. But the boy wasn't worried. If anyone could pull it off, it was his mom. He had seen her tackle challenges before. Long nights, endless chores, fixing things around the house. And she always found a way to make it work. Why should this be any different? Later that afternoon, they headed to the mall, where his mom wandered through aisles of notebooks, pens, and backpacks, marveling at how much had changed since she was last in school. The boy tagged along, offering opinions on which items looked coolest or most practical. At one point, she stopped in front of a display of stethoscopes, gazing at them wistfully. Imagine me wearing one of these someday, she mused aloud. You'd look awesome, the boy replied earnestly. Like a superhero, his mom chuckled, ruffling his hair affectionately. Super nurse, huh? I like the sound of that. As the day came to an end, they returned home with bags full of supplies and hearts full of anticipation. The boy watched as his mom carefully arranged everything on the dining table, organizing notebooks and highlighters with meticulous care. It struck him then how different she seemed, not just compared to yesterday, but compared to the woman who had spent years putting everyone else first. Tonight she looked like someone ready to chase her own dreams, no matter how daunting they might seem. And for the first time in a long while, the boy felt hopeful too, not just for his mom, but for both of them. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The boy's mom threw herself into preparing for the interview, spending hours practicing answers to potential questions and jotting down notes about her goals. She didn't want to leave anything to chance. This opportunity felt like a lifeline, and she was determined not to let it slip through her fingers. Meanwhile, the boy did everything he could to help lighten her load. He took over small chores around the house, made sure dinner was ready when she got home from work, and even reminded her to take breaks when she seemed too absorbed in her preparations. On the morning of the interview, the tension in the house was palpable. The boy watched as his mom dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that looked professional yet comfortable. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair and smoothing out invisible wrinkles on her blouse. "How do I look?" she asked, nervously, glancing at him for reassurance. "You look amazing," he replied without hesitation. "They're gonna love you." His words brought a smile to her face, though her hands still trembled slightly as she picked up her bag. "Wish me luck," she said, giving him a quick hug before heading out the door. For the rest of the day, the boy couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation. He tried to distract himself by finishing some leftover homework and organizing his toys, but his mind kept drifting back to his mom. What if they didn't think she was qualified enough? What if something went wrong? By the time she finally returned home late in the afternoon, he was practically bouncing with impatience. "Well," he blurted out the moment she stepped inside. "How did it go?" She set her bag down slowly, a thoughtful expression on her face. For a second, he feared the worst, but then she broke into a wide grin. "It went great," she said, her voice filled with relief and excitement. "They asked a lot of questions, but I think I answered them honestly. They even said my experience working so many jobs might actually be an advantage. It shows I'm hardworking and can handle responsibility." The boy cheered, throwing his arms around her waist. "I knew you'd ace it," his mom laughed, hugging him tightly. "We'll find out soon if I got in, but just getting this far feels like a win already." A few days later, the letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, nothing fancy about it, but the boy's heart raced as he handed it to his mom. She stared at it for what felt like forever, turning it over in her hands as if afraid to open it. Finally, she took a deep breath and tore it open, her eyes scanning the page quickly. "They said yes," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I got in." The boy erupted into cheers, jumping up and down like he had just won a prize himself. His mom sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face as she read the letter again and again. All those years of sacrifice, all the time she had put her own dreams aside. It hadn't been for nothing. Now she had a chance to build a better future, not just for herself, but for her son too. Over the next few months, life became a delicate, balancing act. Mornings started earlier than ever, with his mom rushing off to her job before heading straight to class. Evenings were spent studying at the kitchen table, textbooks spread out alongside half-empty coffee mugs. The boy did his best to stay out of her way during these moments, quietly doing his homework or reading a book nearby. He loved watching her scribble notes and highlight passages. It made her look powerful, like she was taking control of her life, one page at a time. But it wasn't always easy. There were nights when she came home exhausted, her shoulders slumped and her eyes heavy with fatigue. On those evenings, the boy would sit beside her, offering silent support. Sometimes they talked about their day. Other times they simply sat together in companionable silence. No matter how tough things got, neither of them complained. They both knew this journey was worth every ounce of effort. One evening, as they sat side by side at the table, his mom paused mid-sentence while explaining a difficult concept from her textbook. Looking over at him, she smiled softly. No, none of this would have been possible without you, she said, her voice thick with gratitude. Your gift, the necklace, it reminded me that people care, even when life feels overwhelming. And Karoline, well, she gave me hope when I needed it most. The boy felt his cheeks grow warm. I just wanted to make you happy, he mumbled, looking down at his hands. You did more than that, she replied, reaching over to squeeze his hand. You reminded me that no matter how hard things get, there's always room for kindness. And for dreams. As the months passed, the changes in their lives became impossible to ignore. His mom grew more confident, speaking proudly about her classes and sharing stories about the friends she had made along the way. The boy noticed how her posture had changed. She carried herself differently now, standing taller and smiling wider. Even her laugh sounded lighter, like a weight had been lifted off her chest. And then came the day when she walked through the door holding a certificate, a symbol of all her hard work paying off. She had completed her first semester with flying colors, earning top marks in nearly every subject. The boy clapped and cheered louder than anyone else, his heart swelling with pride. This was only the beginning, but already their lives felt transformed. That night, as they sat together under the twinkling lights of their little Christmas tree, his mom held the silver necklace close to her heart. This is more than just a gift, she said softly. It's a reminder that miracles can happen when we least expect them. The boy nodded, snuggling closer to her. He didn't fully understand everything that had changed, but he didn't need to. All he knew was that his mom was happier than she had been in years, and that made him happier too. As the seasons changed and the first year of classes came to an end, the boy's mom found herself standing at a crossroads. She had done more than just survive her coursework. She had thrived, earning praise from professors and classmates alike for her determination and sharp mind. But now, as she prepared for the next phase of her journey, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. The road ahead was still long, filled with late-night study sessions, clinical rotations, and countless sacrifices. Yet every time she looked at the silver necklace around her neck or caught her son's proud smile, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, after finishing dinner together, the boy noticed his mom staring out the window, lost in thought. He hesitated for a moment before asking softly, "Are you scared?" She turned to him, surprised by the question. After a pause, she nodded. "Yeah, I am," she admitted. "It's not easy juggling everything, work, school, taking care of you. Sometimes it feels like there aren't enough hours in the day. But you're doing great," he replied earnestly, his voice full of conviction. "You never give up no matter how hard things get. That's what makes you amazing." His words brought tears to her eyes. She reached over and pulled him into a tight hug, holding on as if drawing strength from his unwavering belief in her. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know what I'd do without you cheering me on." The truth was, the boy had become her rock, her biggest supporter through all the challenges they faced. Whether it was helping her practice medical terms, reminding her to eat when she forgot, or simply sitting quietly while she studied, he made sure she knew she wasn't alone. And in return, she poured every ounce of love and gratitude she had into making their lives better. By the second year of nursing school, things began to shift in ways neither of them had expected. His mom started landing part-time shifts at a local clinic, gaining hands-on experience that would prepare her for her future career. Though the hours were grueling, the work brought her immense satisfaction. For the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, helping others heal while building a brighter future for herself and her son. The boy, now older and more mature, took pride in watching his mom grow into her new role. He loved hearing her talk about the patients she cared for, the skills she was learning, and the difference she hoped to make in the world. On weekends, she sometimes let him tag along to the clinic, introducing him to coworkers and showing him around. He marveled at how everyone greeted her with respect and admiration, calling her by name and asking for her advice. It was clear to him that she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. But the changes weren't limited to his mom. The boy himself had grown in ways he hadn't anticipated. Spending so much time around people who valued education and hard work inspired him to aim higher. He threw himself into his studies, determined to excel in school so he could one day follow in his mom's footsteps, or perhaps carve out a path of his own. Teachers began noticing his efforts, praising him for his focus and curiosity. For the first time, he started dreaming about the future, not just for himself but for both of them. One afternoon, as they drove home from the clinic, the boy broke the comfortable silence between them. "Mom?" he asked tentatively. "Do you think we'll ever see Karoline again?" His mom glanced at him, surprised by the question. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know," he said, shrugging. "She changed everything for us. I wish we could thank her properly." His mom smiled softly, touched by his thoughtfulness. "That's sweet of you to say," she replied. "And maybe someday we will see her again. But even if we don't, we can show our gratitude by paying it forward, by being kind to others, just like she was to us." The boy nodded, considering her words. Paying it forward sounded simple enough, but he realized it carried a lot of weight. It meant looking for opportunities to make someone else's life a little easier, just as Karoline had done for them. From that day on, he promised himself he would keep an eye out for those moments, whether it was helping a classmate struggling with homework or volunteering at the community center on weekends. As winter approached once again, bringing with it the familiar chill in the air, the boy's mom received an invitation that left her breathless. It was a formal letter inviting her to attend a charity gala hosted by none other than Karoline Leavitt. The event was meant to celebrate stories of resilience and generosity, showcasing individuals whose lives had been transformed by acts of kindness. To her astonishment, their story had been chosen as one of the featured highlights. "I can't believe this," she murmured, reading the letter over and over. "They want us to come, to tell our story." The boy's eyes widened with excitement. "We have to go," he exclaimed. "This is huge." His mom hesitated, unsure if she was ready to step into the spotlight. Public speaking had never been her strong suit, and the idea of sharing their struggles in front of strangers made her nervous. But then she thought about how far they had come, the sacrifices, the late nights, the unshakable bond they shared. If telling their story could inspire even one person to keep going, wouldn't it be worth it? With a deep breath, she nodded. "All right," she said firmly. "Let's do it." The night of the gala arrived faster than either of them expected. Dressed in borrowed clothes, a sleek dress for her and a neatly pressed shirt for him, they stepped into a grand ballroom filled with elegant decorations and soft music. The room buzzed with conversation, and for a moment the boy felt overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. But as they were ushered to their seats near the front, he spotted Karoline standing on stage, her warm smile lighting up the entire room. When it was their turn to speak, the boy squeezed his mom's hand tightly, offering silent encouragement. As she walked up to the microphone, her voice trembled at first but soon grew steady as she recounted their journey. The hardships, the hope, and the unexpected gift of kindness that had changed everything. When she finished, the audience erupted into applause, many wiping away tears. Karoline approached them afterward, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you for sharing your story," she said sincerely. "You remind us all why compassion matters." The boy grinned, feeling a swell of pride unlike anything he'd ever known. In that moment, surrounded by strangers turned friends, he realized something important. Life's greatest miracles often begin with a single act of kindness, and sometimes, those acts ripple outward, touching hearts in ways no one could have imagined. The gala felt like a dream, a whirlwind of lights, laughter, and heartfelt moments that neither the boy nor his mom would ever forget. As they stood near the stage, surrounded by people who had listened intently to their story, they were overwhelmed by the warmth and support radiating from every corner of the room. Strangers approached them with kind words, sharing how their journey had inspired hope in their own lives. For the boy, it was surreal to realize that something as simple as buying a necklace for his mom could lead to such an incredible chain of events. Karoline stayed close throughout the evening, introducing them to others and ensuring they felt comfortable. At one point, she leaned down to speak directly to the boy. "You know," she said with a twinkle in her eye, "you're the real hero here. Your love for your mom sparked everything." He blushed, unsure what to say. He didn't feel like a hero, just a kid who wanted to make his mom happy. But as he looked around the room at all the smiling faces, he began to understand what she meant. Sometimes even the smallest actions can set off waves of change, touching lives far beyond what anyone might expect. In the months that followed, life continued to transform in ways both big and small. His mom graduated at the top of her class, earning accolades from professors and peers alike. The ceremony was held in a large auditorium filled with proud families and friends, and when she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the boy cheered louder than anyone else. She looked out into the crowd, locking eyes with him, and mouthed the words, "Thank you." In that moment, he knew she wasn't just thanking him for being there. It was for believing in her when she needed it most. With her nursing degree in hand, she landed a full-time position at a hospital nearby. It was a demanding job, but it fulfilled her in ways no other work ever had. Every day, she went to bed exhausted yet content, knowing she was making a difference in people's lives. And every morning she woke up grateful for the opportunities that had been given to her, and determined to keep giving back. For the boy, life also took on new meaning. Inspired by his mom's perseverance, he threw himself into his studies with renewed energy. Teachers noticed his dedication and classmates admired his willingness to help others. By the time middle school rolled around, he had become a leader among his peers, often organizing fundraisers or volunteering at community events. He remembered his promise to pay it forward, and he did so whenever he could, whether it was helping a neighbor carry groceries or tutoring younger kids after school. One summer, as they sat together under the stars in their backyard, his mom turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked softly. "All the time," he replied, leaning back on his elbows. "I want to be someone who makes a difference like you do." She smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "You already are," she said. "And whatever you choose to do, I know you'll shine." Years passed, and the boy grew into a young man with dreams bigger than he had ever imagined. His mom's influence stayed with him, guiding him through challenges and reminding him of the power of kindness. When he graduated high school, standing tall in his cap and gown, she clapped until her hands hurt, tears streaming down her face. That night, as they celebrated over pizza and laughter, he handed her a gift wrapped in shiny paper, the same red and gold snowflake design he had used years ago when he gave her the necklace. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Open it," he urged, his grin mischievous. Inside, she found a framed photo of the two of them, taken at the charity gala. Below the picture was an inscription: "To the strongest person I know, thank you for teaching me that dreams are worth chasing." Her breath caught as she read the words, and she pulled him into a tight hug, unable to speak. That Christmas, as they sat together in front of their tree, now decorated with memories of all they had overcome, the boy glanced at his mom. She wore the silver necklace proudly, its heart-shaped pendant gleaming in the soft glow of the lights. "Do you remember that night Karoline came to our door?" he asked suddenly. His mom nodded, her eyes misty with nostalgia. "How could I forget? It changed everything. It wasn't just her, though," he added thoughtfully. "It was us, too. We kept going, even when things got tough. That's what made the difference." She reached over and squeezed his hand, her smile radiant. "We did it together," she agreed, "and we'll keep doing it together." As they sat there, wrapped in the quiet magic of the season, they reflected on how far they had come. From the struggles of their early days to the triumphs they now celebrated, their journey had been anything but easy. Yet, through it all, they had held on to each other, and to the belief that even in the darkest moments light could break through. The boy looked around the cozy living room, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Their story hadn't ended. It was still unfolding, chapter by chapter, and as long as they faced the world side by side, he knew they could handle whatever came next. Because sometimes life gives second chances. Sometimes strangers walk into your life and remind you that kindness exists. And sometimes all it takes is a little courage, a lot of love, and the unwavering belief that tomorrow can be better than today.